automation. Does that mean 47% of the jobs go away? I don't think so. That means 100% of the jobs get reshaped. More learning and adapting. Then this question that we're myopic about, what's your major? Don't do anything outside your major. Get a good grade in your major. Guess how many percentage of people actually work in the field of their undergraduate major? 27. I bet it's going to be 10 going forward. And then this stupid question when you meet somebody, what do you do? It's about the least interesting thing you could ask somebody, but it's what we do. It's a social signal. I need to know what you do. I need to relate to you on an occupational level for some reason. The best research I've seen is out of the Foundation for Young Australians, which is really a really good think tank. It happens to be in Australia, but they look at the entire developing world, and they say a young person today will have 17 different jobs across 5 different industries. So if we are in our educational institutions looking at kids at the age of 10, deciding what their future is going to be based on a math test, slotting them to go to the right college, university, community college, technical school, whatever it's going to be, telling them not to take anything outside the field of their major, their identity is being set, their knowledge is being funneled, and then that first job lasts 36 months. It's educational malpractice. It is. That's going to last 20, 30 years. It's not right. So this brings me to my what are we doing with education question. So if you look at a continuum between social emotional intelligence and cognitive intelligence, and you look at it from convergent thinking, having the right answer, to divergent thinking, asking a lot of great questions, we start with kindergarten and Montessori school out here. We start with developing real social emotional intelligence, encouraging questions. By the way, the founders of Wikipedia, Google, and Facebook all went to Montessori school. Do you think that's a mistake? Then we tell everybody to focus on what you're going to do, get the right answers on the test, really care only about your cognitive intelligence and your convergent thinking, and then all our workforce development skills gaps are there. So we're focusing on the what, we're leaving the why behind, and we're not even addressing the what in the house. I really question why we're doing this. And this could be a picture of me, it's not, but it could be a picture of me because I was a great student. When did we decide that your grade, particularly on a math test, determines your fate? So this cutie pie is my niece, Izzy. And so Izzy called me, I called up Izzy one day. I said, hey, what are you doing? She said, well, it's career day tomorrow. I said, she's 4. Is it career day tomorrow? Seriously? And she said, yeah. I said, Auntie Heather, I said I want to be a unicorn. I said, that's great. She said, they told me I wasn't being realistic. I said, I don't want to meet a realistic 4-year-old. I just don't. This is what they're trying to squash this. Look at that kid. What are we doing? So, and then I figured out the reason that I'm on this stage and the reason that I've managed to survive is this. I went to visit my parents last week, and I took pictures of this. See all the little holes in it? My mother's had that on every single refrigerator in every house I've ever owned, and she really believes it. We have got to figure out how to connect with people so that they feel like they're blooming. Because if they don't have the motivational thrive, they're not going to learn and thrive. So I love this. Davies bloom wherever they have find room, and this is true of people too. So we treat education like a maze. So it's sort of a fix, get your way to the maze, get yourself to the cheese. When in the world, you're going to go out there, and there's no maze. And in the world of the maze, we're solving known problems, we're getting the right answer, we're learning how to extract value, how to get the job, hold the job. In the Wild West, we're learning how to find and frame new problems, find good questions, and ask good questions, and find insights and create new value. So I think we're upside down on this. Marina Gorbis works at the Institute of the Future. Institute of the Future just turned 50 years old. They're out in Silicon Valley, and they try to help companies think about what's coming and what's next. And Marina has this great quote where she says, as soon as we close this digital divide and we stop obsessing about digital skills, the next one that's going to open is the motivational divide. The only way we're going to close this motivational divide is if we help people connect to what inspires them. So I think about it like an iceberg, which I think we're upside down on. First, we look at these skills to do. This is where we're currently focused, the top of the iceberg, where everything could topple, by the way. Enablers, those uniquely human skills, businesses are starting to talk about it. Nobody's really doing any training around it yet, figuring out how you create actual behavior change. And then there's what I call the agile learning mindset, which is so far down in the water, most people are not paying attention to it. And then below that is the identity, which I think is the silent crisis we're not addressing. So one of the things people use, particularly in business, because I work with a lot of corporations, is like, we need our employees to feel the burning platform. Has anybody heard this expression? No, okay, the burning platform is used in companies a lot to say, we've got to change, they've got to feel the fire, we got to feel the burning platform. It's a very common expression used in corporations and sometimes in higher ed. Peter Sheehan is a strategist that I started cross paths with, and he's got a great expression. He said, why are we trying to create a burning platform? Because if you look back at the actual story where this came from, in 1988, there was an oil rig worker in the North Sea, upwards really cold off Scotland. He woke up engulfed in flames. The whole platform was on fire. 166 people died. He was one of the 63 people who survived. His bunk was 15 stories up off the water. He got up out of bed, he made a split-second decision, he jumped into the North Sea. He knew that he only had 20 minutes. If someone didn't fish him out, he was going to die from hypothermia. And they said, why'd you jump? He said, I'd rather jump than fry. And the newspaper reporter kind of cleaned it up and said, I would rather have probable death than certain death. It's a little more poetic. Why are we using this as our model to encourage change? It's ridiculous. And the way we're tracking disruptive technologies and learn new skills and lunging at digital skill sets is no different than jumping 15 stories off the burning platform. I think we got to reframe our perspective, and I agree with Peter, this is his idea. The burning platform is all about fear. Nothing good takes place in the panic zone. We really got to get to inspire. How do you get someone to identify their burning ambition? So as we move from the third to the fourth industrial revolution, I think we've got a lot of changes across a number of dimensions we should think about. So first, talent. It used to be set expertise that was credentialed. Now it needs to be learning agility. It used to be how we thought about value as extracting value. How can we get more out of that business model? How can we get more out of that employee? Now it's about value creation. This is the shift from thinking about employees as a cost to contain or an asset to develop. Our focus was scale and efficiency. In organizations, now it has to be agility and adaptability. Intelligence that we valued was cognitive and convergent. It's got to be social and divergent. Our approach was a monolithic, get a single degree in a discipline, be a master at it. Now it's more of a transdisciplinary mindset. How many different tools can you bring into that? The instructors, you guys were content and skill disseminators. You had the knowledge and you were sharing it and you were testing on it. Now you got to be coaches for human potential. You've got to figure out how to inspire people so that they learn for life, because if they don't, they're not going to thrive. Leadership was driving production, getting more out of the team. Now it's about driving discovery. Self was a fixed occupational identity. Now it's a portfolio that's internally validated. And the big shift that I think we need to make is moving from the value you bring to the value you create. And I'll get to that in a second. So if we look back at the iceberg model, we got to flip it over and start at the bottom. We've got to create resilient and adaptive identities that are driven by purpose. And nobody's going to figure out what their purpose is tomorrow. I'm still working on it. But it's, what are you curious about? What are you motivated by? And then layer on top of that an agile learning mindset. How do you learn and adapt, including to market changes? Enablers, the uniquely human skills, what's referred to as soft skills. I don't use that, but those power skills that allow you to be better at your job. And then on the top of that, the skills to do, we should think about that like we think about applications on our phone. You're going to add and delete a lot of them. So how do you create the conditions so that many of them will run? So I've come up with this concept called the agile learning mindset. I think it connects the heart and the head. It starts with agency, understanding that learning is going to be your responsibility for the rest of your life. In order to do that, you have to understand your self-awareness. You have to understand what motivates you. You have to understand what fuels you, your purpose, your passions. Then it's learning agility. It used to be you only had to understand how you learned because you only had to get through that first third of your life, and then school was over. It's not about school. It's all different kinds of learning. And book learning is just one kind of learning. Most learning is social. And then it's adaptability. How do you navigate ambiguity? How do you deal with unstructured problems? How do you deal with things when they change? And then it's awareness, which is both market and self-awareness. How do you deal with the market conditions changing? How do you deal with your own self-awareness around that? So, do you guys know who Simon Sinek is? No. Okay, Simon Sinek wrote the book Start With Why, and he gave the most watched TED Talk so far in history. And it's a very simple premise, so I share that with you. He says that every company can tell you what they do. They provide some form of value, so they make a product or service. If you can't tell people what you make, you're not in business. Some company can tell you how they're special. That's their unique process, which you may or may not be interested in. But really great companies will tell you why they exist, their purpose, and the customers connect to that purpose. And Simon's point was he's a marketing person communicator, is that great leaders inspire action by connecting to purpose. Great companies inspire brand loyalty by connecting to purpose. And I think it's a really interesting framing that has even more relevance today, because as the world speeds up and how companies change from one business model to the next, one product line to the next, they can't define themselves by what they do. They have to define themselves by why and how they do it. So take Amazon as an easy example. Amazon's purpose, they say, is to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. How they do it, their process, they have 14 leadership principles. If you go to get a job at Amazon, and I think this includes even the warehouse, your process for getting in there is not based upon what you did before. It's not based on your degree. It's how can you show them that your behaviors align with their 14 leadership principles. Is they want to know that you align with their culture and you're going to learn and adapt, because their theory is that whatever job they think they're hiring you for is going to change in 14 to 18 months. So they have to think differently about it. And then right now, they happen to be a global e-commerce company, but that's allowed them to be, Amazon Web Services is actually what makes most of the money for Amazon right now. They're invested in artificial intelligence, electronics, media. Take Barnes & Noble. Can you imagine Barnes & Noble winning Academy Awards? It seems laughable, right? But Amazon has won many. So this is the kind of company that models the kind of behavior that we need to assume. So if we think about it from the individual level, what's your purpose? What interests you? What drives you? What are you curious about? That's where we need to start, not with what your major is or what you're going to study. Pay attention to what motivates you. Then what are your superpowers? What are your unique abilities? What are the kinds of things you're good at? And then how do you apply those things to a job today? That job's going to change. But if you start with your purpose and understand your superpowers, and your purpose is going to change and your superpowers you're going to add to, that's what's going to allow you to go across 5 different industries and 17 different jobs. So everybody seems to have this list of the top 10 skills of the future. Here are 2 of them. Institute of the Future has been at this for 50 years. World Economic Forum has certainly talked to everybody about it. If you read through this list, social intelligence, sense-making, novel and adaptive thinking, design mindset, cognitive load management, computational thinking, transdisciplinarity, virtual collaboration, cross-cultural competency, and new media literacy. Most of these are not technical skills. They're behavioral skills and they're uniquely human skills. The World Economic Forum list, I'm going to lead it, it's very similar. And I think they cluster around 3 areas. First is human-to-human interface. If the machines do more and more, how do we get better at working with each other? The second is human operating skills. How do we operate in this world? How do we leverage technology? How do we leverage it to extend our human potential? It's not about replacing us, it's about amplifying us. And then human navigating skills. How do you navigate in this world where it's not stocks of knowledge you know anymore, but it's flows of knowledge and changing conditions? And the Future Work Skills Academy is the only group that I know of out there that's starting to develop online lessons for some of these skills, which is really interesting because I think that it's a massive need. And they've started on it. They've got the first 4. I can give you guys the website if anybody's interested in it. So just to summarize it, and then we can go into some Q&A. I'll give you a couple summary frameworks, and then I'll give you what I think are some good tips to sort of start thinking this way. I think our life blocks are changing. So this kind of old model that education, work, retire, and then you move through it, you kind of were productive in your work years for about 73 years. That's the old model. The model that I see emerging, which I think is faulty logic, I think it's wrong, is to basically just break up the work module with a little reskilling so that it becomes like a camel hump. That sets up a false expectation because whatever it is you learn in that reskilling period may not last, so you may have many, many humps. It also doesn't address issues of identity and learning mindset. They just sort of reskill you. this kind of idea, we're going to turn coal miners into coders. It leaves behind everything they care about, who they think they are, and why they live where they live. So I think the emerging model, which I think is really relevant to community colleges, looks more like this. The life blocks turn on their side. And education becomes learning, it's continuous, and it's lifelong. Work becomes engagement, and it's a whole lot longer because we're living longer. And then retirement becomes sort of retire and recondition, and I think we're going to move through it like that, and we need the social safety net for it, we need the systems of learning for it, we need the mindset for it, and community college could play a huge role in this shift. So the way we used to focus our attention is we used to say kind of, okay, I need to learn to do something, work doing that thing, produce a unit of value, go home, 40 years, get my cold watch, die. Now it's learning how to learn. Learning and work become a combined act. That's why I use an infinity symbol. But that combined act is really fueled by purpose. That's what keeps us going. The unit of value we produce becomes a byproduct, and our focus becomes on increasing our capacity. I'll give you an example. Everything you buy from Amazon has nothing to do with selling you that thing. It's all about learning more about you. Every company is going to be a data company. Every company is going to be a learning company. How do you constantly learn all the time? Because products and services become the exhaust from that learning. They become evidence of that learning. So, like if we think of a company is really a brand of product, right? Whether the product is a service. That's what a company is. And if we focus on the brand and product, we're focusing on the exhaust. Because all a brand is an expression of culture. And all a product is evidence of capacity. So if an organization focuses on nurturing their culture, why we do the things we do, why we exist in the world, how does the world look differently because we exist? And then how do we constantly increase our capacity as the world changes? So I came up with this little assessment tool one day. We just lost everything. Do we still have our IT people? Because everything went out.